miserable wet belts. Welcome to the Vinyl Roof. I'm Jason, your host with the most. Most what, you ask? Most reasons to tell you to sod off and listen anyway. That's what. Today we're diving bollocks deep into the Reliant range of vehicles, those three-wheeled shitboxes that somehow became a British institution, like warm beer or queuing for no fucking reason. Strap in, you wankers, because this is going to be a crude, rude, and probably leave you questioning why you're still listening to me instead of shagging something more interesting. Let's get into it. So what the fuck are we talking about? Reliant. The name alone sounds like something your nan would call her knackered old Hoover that still sucks, but not in a fun way. These piss poor excuses for cars were churned out by a bunch of nutters in Tamworth, Staffordshire, from the 1930s right up to the early 2000s. Three wheels, fiberglass bodies, and a reputation for being the automotive equivalent of a one-night stand with a dodgy kebab afterwards. Cheap, nasty, and you're left wondering why you bothered. Like a rash, they won't go away. Reliant kept coming back, and today we're peeling back the scabby layers of their history, design, and the poor sods who actually drove them. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Back in the 1930s, some absolute bellend named Tom Williams decided that Britain needed a car with one less wheel than God intended. Why? Because 4 wheels meant you had to pay proper road tax and get a full driving licence, and Tom wasn't about to let the taxman finger his wallet that easily. So in 1935, he shat out the Reliant Regal, a 3-wheeled motorcycle engine monstrosity that looked like a pram fucked a lawnmower and forgot the condom. The idea was simple: dodge the rules, save a few quid, and give the working class punters something they could rattle around in, and rattle they did. Literally. These things were made of fiberglass because steel was for posh twats with actual money, and they sound like a chainsaw gargling gravel. During World War II, Reliant even made vans for the war effort. Imagine the Nazis quaking in their jackboots as a squadron of 3-wheeled shit heaps rolled up with supplies. Achung, these British are coming! Very slowly, and probably tipping over. Post-war, the reel became a staple for every tight-ass git who couldn't stretch to a proper motor. By the 1950s and 60s, Reliant was pumping out models like the Supervan. Yes, the same one Delboy and Rodney made famous in Only Fools and Horses. You know the scene. One day, Rodney, we'll be millionaires. Yeah, mate. Millionaires don't drive a yellow turd on wheels that falls over if you sneeze too hard. The Supervan was basically a shed with a windscreen, and it cemented Reliant's place in British culture as a car you brought when you'd given up on life but still needed to get to the chippy. Then came the 1970s, and Reliant decided to get all posh with the Robin. Oh, the fucking Robin. What a name. Sounds like something you'd call your mate's limp dick after a night on the piss. Launched in 1973, it was billed as a proper car for the everyman, except it still had 3 wheels and handled like a shopping trolley with a wonky caster. The Robin was the pinnacle of Reliant's wankery, boxy, ugly, and about as sexy as a fart and a lift. They kept tweaking it over the years, giving us the Robin Mark II and III, but it was like putting lipstick on a pig's arse. Still a pig, still an arse. And let's not forget about the Reliant Scimitar, proof that even a broken clock is right twice a day. This was their attempt at a sports car, and shockingly, it had 4 wheels. Launched in the 1960s, the Scimitar GTE was a fiberglass wedge that actually looked like half decent, like something James Bond might have shagged a bird in before Q told him to fuck off back to the Aston Martin. Princess Anne loved hers. She had a fleet of the bastards, which just proves that even royalty can have shit taste sometimes. By the 90s, Reliant was on its last legs. Ironic, since their cars never had enough legs to begin with. The Robin got a final facelift in 1999 called the Rialto, but it was too late. The company went tits up in 2002, leaving behind the legacy of automotive fuckwittery that's somehow still celebrated by weirdos who collect these rolling cock-ups like Fabergé eggs. Now let's talk design, because calling Reliant designed is like calling turds sculpted. The core concept was 3 wheels, 1 at the front, 2 at the back, because who needs stability when you've got blind optimism and a death wish? The front wheel did the steering, which meant every corner felt like a gamble with Satan himself. Hit a pothole too fast, they'd be on your arse quicker than drunk at a wedding. The The body was fiberglass, which sounds fancy until you realise it's the same shit they make caravans and cheap kayaks out of. It was light, sure, but also as brittle as fuck. Crash one of these and you'd be picking shards out your arsehole for weeks. The engine, a wheezy little 4-cylinder job, usually pinched from a motorcycle or a Morris Minor that'd seen better days. Top speed on a Robin was about 85 miles an hour, but only downhill with a tailwind and a prayer to St. Christopher. Inside it was pure 70s Britain. Think vinyl seats that stuck to your bollocks in summer and froze them off in winter. A dashboard that looked like it was nicked from a tractor, and a gear stick you had to wrestle like it owed you money. The Robin even had a luxury version with walnut trim, because nothing screams fake wood in a car that smells like damp dog and desperation. The Scimitar was a different beast. 4 wheels, a Ford V6 engine, and shaped that screamed midlife crisis, louder than a bloke in a toupee buying a motorbike. It was still fiberglass though, so if you pranged it, you'd be sweeping at pieces while your mates pissed themselves laughing. Reliant thought they were clever with the Scimitar, but it was like a chav winning the lottery, still a chav, but with better toys. Reliant's design philosophy was simple: build it cheap, flog it to the plebs, and pray they don't notice it's a death trap. And somehow it worked. These cars were everywhere, parked outside council estates, clogging up B roads, and tipping over in car parks because some twat forgot how physics work. So who actually brought Reliant? Well, picture this: blokes with comb-overs and fag-stained fingers who thought a 3-wheeler was a setup for a push bike. Lads too skint for a Cortina, but too proud for a bus pass. And weirdos who generally thought they were cool, like the sort of nutter who wears socks with sandals and calls it fashion. The Regal and Super Van were workhorses for small traders, milkmen, plumbers, sparkies, who needed something cheap to lug their gear around. You'd see them trundling around at 30 miles an hour, belching smoke, with a ladder strapped to the roof, and a driver who looked like they last smiled in 1952. The Robin, though, was a family car for people who hated their families. 4 seats technically, but good luck fitting 4 adults in there without someone's elbow ending up in your crutch. It was marketed as a practical 850 engine, 40 miles to the gallon, but practical didn't mean jack when you're scraping your arse off the tarmac after a sharp turn. Then there's the Scimitar crowd, middle-aged tossers with too much money and not enough sense. They'd cruise around in the GTEs pretending they were in a Bond film, while everybody else just saw fiberglass coffin on wheels. Princess Anne aside, most Scimitars owners were probably estate agents or divorcees trying to impress their new bit on the side. Reliants are also a magnet for piss takers. Joyriders loved nicking them because they were so easy to hotwire and hilarious to crash. And let's not forget the MOT Dodgers. 3-wheelers were classed as motorcycles, so you could keep them on the road with a bit of duct tape and blind mechanic. They were the ultimate fuck you to the system, until the system fucked you back when you rolled one into a ditch. Alright, time for some audience participation. I've got a couple of letters from ex-Reliant owners, and they're filthier than a trucker's sock drawer. Here's the first one, from Dave in Bolton. Take it away, you sad bastard. Dear Jason, you absolute knobhead. I had a Reliant back in 86, and it was the absolute pile of shit I've ever owned. Bought it for 200 quid off a bloke who looked like he'd shagged his own sister. Probably had, judged by the state of the car. First day out, I took it down the M62 to impress this bird I was seeing. Halfway there, the front wheel hit a fucking crisp packet or something, and the whole thing tips over like a drunk slapper on a Saturday night. I'm lying there, upside down, with my knob out because I'd been having a cheeky tug to calm my nerves, and this lorry driver pulls over, pissing himself with laughing. Nice motor, mate, he shouts, while I'm trying to stuff me cock and balls back into me kecks. The bird dumped me, the car was knackered, and I had to walk home with fiberglass in my arse crack. Reliant can shove their 3 wheels where the sun don't shine, preferably up their own exhaust. Keep it the podcast, you sarcastic twat. Cheers, Dave. You absolute legend. Sounds like you and that Robin deserved each other. 2 wobbly disasters looking for love in all the wrong places. Thanks for the mental image of you upside down in a wank session. I'll never unsee that, you filthy git. Here's a second letter from Tracy in Tamworth. Buckle up, this one's a corker. Oi Jason, you loudmouth prick. I drove a Reliant Regal in the 90s because my ex-husband was a cheapskate twat who wouldn't pay out for a proper car. That thing was a fucking death trap. Every time I hit a speed bump, it sounded like the engine was shitting itself, and the back end bounced like it farted out a curry. One time, I was late for my shift at this co-op, so I floored it down the A20. Big mistake. The bastard thing flipped over in a car park, and I ended up arse over tit with my skirt around my ears and my knickers on show for the whole world. Some spotted teenager filmed it on his Nokia. I bet it's still on some dodgy porn site somewhere. The worst bit, my fanny pack full of tampons spilled out, and the old codger walks by muttering, "Bloody woman drivers." I told him to fuck off and threw a Tampax at his head. Reliant cars offer idiots who hate themselves. Love the show, you crude bastard. Tracy, you are a national treasure, flipping a Regal and pelting a pension with a tampon. That's the kind of chaos I live for. Cheers for writing in, you glorious mess. So what's the final verdict on Reliant? They were a company that took stupid idea, 3 wheels, and ran with it like a dog with a boner. The Regal, the Robin, the Supervan, all steaming piles of crap that somehow wormed their way back into British hearts, probably because we live an underdog. Even if it's a wobbly, fiberglass shit heap, the Scimitar was the exception, a rare moment of competence, but even that couldn't save Reliant from going belly up. Today these cars are collector's items for bearded weirdos in anoraks who wank over Haynes manuals and bore you to death at car shows. The Robin's still a punchline. Every time you see one, you half expect Del Boy to pop out with a dodgy Rolex. But there's something oddly charming about them, like a mate who's total fuck up, but you keep him around because he's good for a laugh. That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Roof. If you've got your own Reliant horror story, or even if you just want to call me a tosser, email me at thevinylroof@gmail.com. Next time, we're tearing into another automotive abomination, so stick around, you pricks. I'm Jason, and off to find something less depressing to talk about, like my last prostate exam. Cheerio, you filthy lot.